Welcome everybody, I'm glad to introduce Tamás Pécsi.
Thank you very much, and it's nice to see all of you. I started to work as a naturalist 30 years ago. I was quite young, but I had already been hiking, climbing and chasing birds for 20 years. I've been interested in snakes since childhood. Actually, the story started 117 years ago when Otto Hermann, while having a stroll on the Rákos Meadow, caught two vipers and was intrigued by them. He knew the common European viper, but these snakes were different in some way. What he had discovered was a Hungaricum, something unique to Hungary, the most endangered venomous snake of Europe. There are only 500 living specimens left. The question is how this could happen. There's no other example in the history of Hungarian wildlife in which a species has been driven to the brink of extinction in the course of 110 years. At the time Lajos Méhé was writing in 1912, the Hungarian meadow viper was widespread, occurring around Budapest, at Örkény, Kecskemét, Kolozsvár, throughout Vas County, Honság, around Lake Neusiedl and in the area between the Vienna forest and Leiter. Today, however, we can find only small separated populations sparsely dotting the Hanság, Kiskunság and some parts of Transylvania. Due to increasing human activities, the survival of the species is now hanging by a thread. Intensive mechanized agriculture, the collection of the snakes for commercial purposes, and the intentional destruction of these animals have all done their part. The populations have been separated one from another, and their numbers have been decimated. The aim of the Hungarian Meadow Viper Conservation Centre is to take care of the animals arriving from endangered habitats, and also to mate the specimens derived from these separated populations in order to avoid inbreeding. Due to the outdoor enclosures, researchers have the possibility to study the species intensively in a natural environment, something which is very difficult to do in the wild due to the viper's elusive habits. The scalation and colour pattern of each viper differ individually, hence they can be identified relatively easily. The first specimens of the Hungarian meadow viper were discovered in 1892. When walking his dogs, the renowned Hungarian naturalist Otto Hermann caught two specimens in the Rákos Meadow. He presumed them to be common European vipers, but Lajos Méhé, an eminent 19th century zoologist, realized that they differed from them. It was he who named the species the Hungarian meadow viper, and dubbed the species the Aristocrat of the snakes. If not for the Hungarian Meadow Viper Conservation Centre, these aristocrats would have been gone by now. In the 1980s, perhaps in the very nick of time, Tamás Pécsi, employee of BirdLife Hungary, noticed a significant decrease in the viper population and realised the urgent need to do something. In April 1993, he convened experts on the topic, and by spring the survey had started. Finding vipers is not an easy task, but as the years went by it got more and more difficult. Populations were fragmenting and thinning, proving that the species was in extreme danger. It became obvious that the remaining wild specimens, facing sure annihilation in their natural habitat, needed to be gathered together. Haystacks in Winter, a painting by Hungarian artist József Rippl-Rónai. Ironically, this small piece of canvas played an important role in the conservation of the Hungarian meadow viper.
In 1968, I had the opportunity to go to Hungary to a bird conference. I became quite close friends of Professor János Danish, who had just set up the Hungarian Bird Society, MMA. Got permission to visit quite a lot of places in Hungary, and the wildflowers were wonderful. Well, I was on one of my visits there just after the collapse of communism, and my friend, who was Carlo A. Giorgi, said, we're desperate to acquire. Rich people are rushing to buy land. Privatization is all the rage, and we're desperately trying to buy important places for birds, wetlands, fish ponds, bits of forest and so on, and we haven't got enough money. And I said, well, nor have I. But what I can do and will do is I had a little collection from my friend who died of Ripple-Runoi. Mostly little things like this, but there's this one big oil painting. I had it sent to George, and they sold it by auction. I didn't put any conditions on it at all. I said to George, spend it where you think you need it most. I would personally have preferred it wasn't to do with vipers, which don't interest me, and if that's what they wanted, welcome to have it.
In 1998, thanks to the generous support of Mr. Chancellor, national park authorities could purchase a farm in the middle of the Great Hungarian Plain, close to a small village called Kunpeser. In January 2004, the LIFE programme started with €649,000. The capture and breeding of the vipers could begin. But why breed vipers if they have nowhere to live? To provide the habitat they need, it was essential that the natural landscape be restored. Grassland Reconstruction took place at Peser Ardach on a tree plantation that created a barrier between two viper populations. A detailed management plan was prepared in order to direct the difficult process of turning false acacia and pine plantations into sandy pastures. There are already certain areas with clear signs of repopulation by species from the grassland. In wintertime, the Hungarian meadow viper hibernates, mostly in the burrows of rodents. To ensure optimal conditions, in the case of the breeding program, the experts developed an artificial burrow which lived up to expectations in the outdoor terrariums. But will it stand up in the field as well?
Off we go. The first chamber is empty. So is the second one.
That's the question researchers are trying to answer by using a pipe camera.
On the bottom there are some spadefoots and a few newts.
But no snake.
No snake.
In October, vipers begin to seek shelter from the winter in the burrows of voles or ground squirrels if they can find suitable sites. In winter, in viper habitat, the temperature is only 1 or 2 degrees above zero. They don't come out of the burrows until the end of March, or, depending on the weather, even until the middle of April. The protection of a venomous snake can be difficult to accept for the general public. That's why raising awareness is exceptionally important. Changing attitudes is a crucial part of the program.
Here you can get all the necessary information about the Hungarian Meadow Viper Conservation Program.
People consider the vipers in an utterly different way. If, for example, they know that its venom is practically harmless to an adult, the effect of a bite is similar to that of a bee sting.
Good luck to the Hungarian Meadow Viper.
It needs it.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
A new building is going up in the Budapest Zoo. In the so-called Venom House, visitors will have a chance to observe many poisonous creatures, among them the Hungarian meadow viper. One has to be extremely lucky to spot a snake in the wild, so facilities like this one are the only way to catch a glimpse of these shy and elusive creatures. In the spring, the males perform a special dance. They battle for the females. The winner finds his reward, the female by her distinctive smell, which can even be perceptible to the human nose. One male can mate with several females. There's always something to do in and around the Viper Centre. Whether it's maintenance, repairs, or creating nature trails. Luckily, the ever-growing volunteer group is always there to help. Results speak for themselves. By 2010, the number of the captive bred vipers reached the 500 mark. The time has come to release some of them.
We are preparing the wintering burrows. These are empty pipes for the present, but the end of February and a quiet warm day, the vipers will be placed into them. So they will wake up here. Hopefully this way, the environment will seem familiar to them, and they won't try to look for other territories.
Üreg lesz, és így szoknak hozzá ez a környezethez.
The area is grazed by cattle, which is essential to maintain the diverse structure of the grassland, the habitat of this unique reptile. The species is listed under the EU's Natura 2000, an ecological network of protected places. All natural occurrences of the vipers are included in the Natura 2000 network. On these sites, all development and management must be subordinated under the habitat needs of the vipers. Is there a chance to restore the original size of the population? And talking about restoration, exactly how many vipers lived here before? What's the population baseline that needs to be targeted? The answers to these questions can be found in another country. There are corners of Europe where natural conditions still dominate. Such areas can be found in Ukraine on the Crimea. In this region lives an animal formerly classified as a member of the species group of the Hungarian meadow viper. Today, however, the steppe viper is considered as a separate species. Here, snakes live a relatively undisturbed life, so researchers can easily draw conclusions about the original population parameters in Hungary. The steppe viper occurs both in mountainous and lowland areas. During a short visit to the lowland habitat of the Azov-Sivash National Park, the researchers found 18 specimens. Then they went to find the highland populations as well, searching the steppe grass and glades of Chatyrdag mountain. They examined not only the vipers, but also other local wildlife in order to be able to study the complex interactions of the ecological conditions of the habitats where the Hungarian meadow and the steppe vipers live. In the case of the vipers, individual identification is a difficult but crucial task. It's essential in order to estimate the size of wild populations.
Digital images are very useful when trying to identify individual snakes. We take pictures of the top and of both sides of the head and also of the entire body. All of these pictures show unique scale numbers and patterns, so if we can check them separately, we can actually be 100% sure whether we managed to identify the specimen. As a matter of fact, the identification itself is the counting of the characteristic scales. I've put these scale numbers into an Excel spreadsheet. By placing them in hierarchical order, one can find easily the unique combination that identifies the individual in question. Now then, this was the identification so far. This is what we try to organize, integrate and pull with the software.
Though the pattern can change throughout the life of the viper, the number and the shape of the scales is constant, hence the method is very reliable. In addition to the individual identification, examining genetic compatibility is also needed in the breeding program in order to avoid inbreeding.
At the beginning, we worked with breeding pairs. In such cases, we can be utterly sure who the parents are. But later, we realized that it could be much more natural if the vipers bred in groups, because this way they would have the chance to choose mates themselves. And that might maximize the viability of the offspring. In turn, obviously we lose the easy establishment of the father, so we have to apply genetic analysis for that purpose.
These genetic analyses are made in the molecular taxonomic laboratory of the Hungarian Natural History Museum. After the extraction of pure DNA from the viper's blood, special fragments of it are amplified for the detection. By analyzing the product, researchers are able to compare populations. Moreover, they can establish the genetic relationships among individuals.
We can make several statements based on the result we've got so far. One thing is certain, the genetic variability of the species doesn't reach the level which can usually be experienced in the case of a much bigger population of vertebrates living in a large area. At the same time, I have to say that it is not necessarily this kind of lack of genetic variability which could make the fate of the population doubtful. On the other hand, we have to realize that we shouldn't let the species undergo further drastic decline.
It seems that decreasing population size reduced the genetic variability, leading to a so-called bottleneck effect. But is there anything to be done?
It has also been shown that comparing the genotypes of the animals derived from the wild and of those from the artificial breeding, the genetic variability is slightly higher in the case of the vipers from the conservation center. This let us hope that we have some chance to conserve this variability. What's more, we might even improve it a little.
With the support of the European Union and also of Hungary, we managed to bring to fruition what we had determined to do 15 years ago, and the program is progressing quite well. I mean, the breeding project is successful, and I can say the same about the habitat reconstruction. In addition to this, the building for the venomous animals has been built at the Budapest Zoo.
Good afternoon. As you can see, there is something happening in the Budapest Zoo again. It is a great pleasure to me to be here at the opening ceremony of the Venom House. And when talking about the venom and this new exhibition, I have to emphasize that there is really just a few establishments in the world where these venomous creatures can be seen together. Here visitors can get a glimpse not only of the European venomous snakes, but also of many other animals related to the venom.
Egyik legnagyobb mérges kígyó kiállításával tetszenek majd találkozni, hanem sok minden egyébbel is, ami az élő világban a méreghez kötődik. Szemben van ez a kiállítás, amelyik a...
This part of the exhibition is about the Hungarian Meadow Viper Conservation Program.
As a result of the hard work of many years, in February 2010, the number of captive bred vipers reached the 500 mark. The time has arrived to release some of them.
Azt látjuk Magyarországon, hogy a politika nem nagyon fordul.
In today's Hungary, Nature Conservancy seems very low on the political agenda.
Lázában ég. Úgy viselkedünk néha, mint a szegény ember, aki az utolsó kanalát is eladja, aztán amikor egy kis leveshez jut, már nincs mivel megennie.
I feel honoured that the Hungarian president will come to see us.
I'm glad to talk about the positives. This conservation project is principally saving the Hungarian meadow viper, but at the same time it helps a lot to conserve the natural habitats of this wonderful landscape in a good, sustainable condition like it was about 100 years ago.
Though the coordinators of the program provided gloves, Laszlo Solyom released the vipers with his bare hands.
Of all life nature projects of the European Union, it is one of the top 5. Plus, it's one of the very few things that we can really be proud of. So why not support and promote it?
A new phase has started in the Hungarian meadow viper conservation program. There's still so much to do to strengthen the 11 remaining populations in the country and to monitor the released specimens in order to make sure that the program keeps going. This is a relatively undemanding species. It's not that we have to make a miracle, nothing like that. If we just recreate the circumstances that existed in these areas 30 years ago, then I think it will work. Will these captive bred vipers hold their own in the wild? Only time can answer such questions. But one thing is sure. Researchers will exert every effort to save the Hungarian meadow viper from joining the long list of species exterminated by us.